Pod SaaS, where we're putting the SaaS back in sassy. Sponsored by LeadrPro, where you can book demos with target customers on demand and fill your sales pipeline instantly.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Pod SaaS. I'm your host, Chris Sheng, and today we have Roi from Finout. How's it going, Roi?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. You're coming to us from Tel Aviv, correct?
Indeed.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about Finout and what makes a good customer for you guys.
So Finout is the next generation of cloud cost management companies, right? It's so we can help companies track down the entire usage-based spend, from the cloud providers all the way to solutions like Snowflake and Datadog, view it all in one place, create complicated cost allocation rules, with native Kubernetes support, native integration with cloud-native technologies, and allow companies to really assign their cost all the way to their customers, understand their profitability margins, and actively work on reducing their cloud spend and footprint. An ideal customer would be, practically any company that is spending lots of money on cloud starts to get, it starts to get harder and harder to manage with those ever increasing bills, and need a solution like Finout to help with that.
Got it. Okay. Is there a particular size of company where you start seeing that, their bandwidth taking up on the cloud, hit to a certain threshold that then makes sense to evaluate a solution like yours?
We start to see companies reaching Finout when they start to reach the 100K monthly expense mark. They're just a nice to have, but when it gets to the millions of dollars, the monthly spend on cloud providers, it's not just makes sense to have a tool to solve it, but to actually have someone dedicated, at least one to start to manage your cloud cost, usually titled FinOps.
Got it. Cool. I'd love to. We'll dive into a little bit more about your story and how you guys ended up starting Finout. But before we do that, want to get to know you a little bit more better as an individual. We do this series of rapid fire questions. Nothing too crazy. If you're ready for it, we can hop right into it.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Cool. First question, super easy, is it's the idea of who's your favorite entrepreneur and/or startup story. Could be one of the same or two separate.
I'm not one of founders just looking at the crazy CEOs and the crazy founder story. I'm trying to look at my surroundings, trying to find CEOs that I really appreciate, that 1 year ahead of me, 2 years ahead of me. So those are the CEOs I look up to and the companies I look up to, because there's a lot to learn from Facebook and Netflix, obviously, but a lot more actionable is a startup that is building next to me and just 1 year ahead of me.
Anybody in particular that you refer to in your space that you look at to as maybe aspirational or mentor or guidance advisor?
So we have a bunch of folks from Intel Ignite that are really helpful. So there's Barak Perlman from Indigi and Israel Bush from Hilo that really are my go-to CEOs that just a bit ahead of me and can give me great advice whenever I need it.
Got it. Awesome. Do you remember what you wanted to be as a kid? Talking about 8, 9, 10 years old?
Very good question. Probably somewhere related to business management. I grew up to a CEO mother, right? So I had no other choice.
Got it. So it's in your blood to the C-suite.
Yeah.
Got it. Next question is most painful experience, and I'll give you a little bit of context for it, is that most exponential periods of growth typically come or stems from places of extreme discomfort, right? So is there anything that you can refer to either personally or professionally that obviously going through it was very difficult, but looking back on it was character defining for you?
I'm a child of early divorce, and as I talked before, very career building mother meant that I spent most of my childhood kind of alone, which was on the other hand tough, but on one hand up, and on the other hand really shaped my personality and independence and the way that I operate.
Got it. Is there anything you feel like you can attribute to where you are today based on that going through that experience?
Yes, I think one of the best qualities for an entrepreneur is to be very, very independent, very fast thinker, and not super reliant on others. Thinking about my past, I think it's a lot of the things that are really helping me now is to be there. You're CEO. Most of the time you're alone. You need to take million decisions a day. and just run fast without thinking.
Absolutely. That being said, starting a business at any point in your life is always very trying and difficult. You have to do a lot of different things, wearing a lot of different hats. You run into a lot of walls. What is something in particular that motivates you in like that 25th hour when your back's against the wall?
The opportunity to come to the office every day that it's a company that I built together with my founders, and we were sitting in this room just 2 years ago trying to convince anyone that Finout is something, and now it starts to be a working place. People are leaving their jobs and coming and joining you on a journey. Investors kind of put their reputation on your customers, or ditching old solutions, start to buy what you have to sell. So it's a sense of accomplishment in a baby that you are creating, but it's a baby that is growing very, very fast. And it's a feeling that you can't find anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people don't necessarily. There's no other way, I think, to replicate that feeling. I know, like, even we've had founders here where they have their own kids, obviously, and it's not one of the same, but it is a very similar experience, but in its own way. Like having your business is having almost like a separate child, but comes with its own aches and pains as well as its own benefits and pros. So. Next question is there anything that you do to personally decompress from the stress of obviously getting a business off the ground?
I found that running is the best medicine. Like whenever I have very long days that are my mind's just super occupied, everything, I just get home, put on my running shoes, and go to think. And it really helps me, to decompress after a very long day. And beer, obviously. Right?
For sure. Along the way, obviously in the past few years and probably before that, but as an entrepreneur, you pick up a lot of different skill sets, right? Talked about already wearing a lot of different hats. Has there been anything that you've picked up? Because I know you're engineer kind of background, right? So obviously you've probably had to dabble though in a lot of other things, from taking care of the books and accounting to some of the legal stuff and all that other stuff. But has there been anything that you've picked up that you've had a strong emotional disposition towards, either loved or hated, just a skill set that you never thought you would end up picking up?
I'm constantly learning new things like every day, and working with the lawyers, working with finance, working with marketing, working with sales, working with CS, working with SDR. Like I never done this, right? I'm an engineer. I know how to write code. I know how to build systems. Like that's my comfort zone. But now we need to sell the product that we built, and we need to convince people to give us money for that. So constantly learning new skills and new terminology, like every day, seriously every day.
Absolutely. Next question, a little bit more personal, but number one, do you have a bucket list? And then two is, what's one of the more ambitious items on that bucket list, if you care to share?
A lot of my bucket list is related to travel. There are so many places in the world that I want to see. Phenomenal like the aurora borealis and Stone Age and Sahara Desert and but most of the United States. Like really tons of things that I want to do. I want to do and accomplish and really experience on my own. So that's most of my bucket list is there.
Got it. The last question here, before we talk a little bit more about your journey, is the idea of legacy. But more importantly, what kind of impact do you want to leave on this world before you leave it?
So I think when you're done with your life, you're done. But you still remain, in the minds and hearts of the people that you really impacted, and being a good person, and living your legacy in your family, and being someone that people can remember, fondly, is the way to continue and live within within their hearts and not depart together with you. So I really try to take the high road almost always, even in business, in my family, with my friends. Like I try to be as good of person as I can, and karma.
Fair enough. Awesome. So that's it for the series of rapid fire questions. But want to get to know you a little bit more. There's definitely a lot of nuggets in there that I want to kind of extrapolate on. But walk us through kind of like the previous, 12 years of your career. I know you spent a lot of time in DevOps and a lot of time as an engineer before making the leap as a founder. So, walk us through kind of, again, from, maybe finishing university and how you made the decision to become an engineer. When did you learn, when did you become intrigued with coding and the idea of that? Because we've had a lot of like technical founders, that some have found it really, really early, like, 8, 9, 10, some that found it later in life. But it all obviously impacts the way that they go on their entrepreneurial journey.
So taking the Israeli angle, for us, we have the mandatory service, in the army, and before getting drafted, they start you, to run you through a bunch of tests and finding your destiny for you, right? And it turns out that I was very good at algorithmical thinking, without me even knowing. Like, I never touched computers before the military, but that ended up in programming course. That is 6 months, very intensive training that starts with this is a computer and this is how you turn it on, and all the way to super advanced programming throughout systems. So I spent around 7 years working in the Israeli intelligence units, as programmer in DevOps, and I really started to establish DevOps practices there. So it was not a lifelong dream, to work with computers, not something that I'd ever knew, but I kind of rolled down with it. And after spending as well on the military, I joined the company called Logs.io, which is a Splunk Datadog competitor. In Logs.io, as after spending lots of years in the military, it's like such a huge mega enterprise organization. And with thinking everything is so slow, everything is so hard, so bureaucratic, and I wanted to run the complete opposite of that. So I joined a company of back then 10 people sitting in an old bridal salon in the port of Tel Aviv, with the background in the middle of the office, and the full Israeli startup experience, and ended up spending around 6 years there. Ended up as an engineering director, responsible for the entire infrastructure, and it was an infrastructure company that was a lot. And one of the biggest things that we had to face on a daily basis was what infrastructure do we rent? Like, what computers do we buy? How much do we pay for cloud vendors? And it started small, and it ended up, multi vendors running both on AWS and on Azure and on Stripe and Mailchimp and Akamai and Twilio, and like a bunch of users based software that just kept on increasing. And me, just not able to give finance the answers that they required me. Why do we spend more money on AWS this month? And I don't know. And how much do we pay for this specific customer? How much do we pay for this specific feature? Is that profitable or not? What's the minimum pricing you can give for someone? All great questions that I should have had the answers for, because I was in charge of the infrastructure, but eventually I could not communicate well with finance and logs and leadership, and eventually we had enough, so we had to start Finout.
Got it. And how many people were at the company by the time that you left?
I think 200 something.
Wow. Okay. And then was Finout, did you end up going and starting Finout directly after that?
Yeah, so we left in order to start Finout.
Okay.
We gave them a long grace. We found a replacement. So me and our CPO was the department manager for my group, and we both left a major intersection within the company. So we did it nicely, and departed especially to run that. And Logs.io was our first design partner and our customer in all cars.
Awesome.
Both sides.
Can you walk us through kind of like the psychology or just the thinking of, one, identifying the pain point, the idea. Two is, ultimately getting some sense of validation, and it doesn't have to be market fit, but it's the idea of validation enough for you to personally make the leap into something that's stable, consistent at that point, right? Like from 10 to 200, and going into something has no guarantee, big risk. Because I think that's really interesting, and everybody's got a different experience with that. But what was yours personally?
I think they're not never enough market validations you can run in order to take the decision, like leaving your job and starting your own company, and just being by your own, no salary, trying to build a company that will eventually pay your and give you salary, is a non-rational decision, no matter how you look at it. Like that's why I think entrepreneurs have to be crazy enough and dumb enough to that's the first test, and you need to continue to be dumb enough to believe that you're building a constant business and it continue to work against all odds, against all everything is against you. But that's the first test to quit your job and try to do that. So obviously, we ran as many conversations as we can before letting our employer know that we're leaving, and then after we let the employer know, we had even more and more conversation. We started to get good traction with design partners and folks that really wanted Finout. But between a market validation and that kind of conversation to someone actually buying a product, there's a line. And no matter how many conversations you can run until you actually can sell something that's something that is very different, and it's always a matter of can we do that? Can we not do that? And again, it's a non-rational decision that you just have to blindly go with your belief and your dream.
Absolutely. Have you ever dealt with the idea of like imposter syndrome, right? Where it's like, you're leading a team of people, and really like there's a lot of times there's no cookie cutter path for any founder. Like no matter if somebody in the same category has done it before, it's not going to be the same for you, right? And so knowing that, obviously it's great to have good mentors and advisors, but you're still going and forging it very independently, very, very much on your own. How do you deal with some of that, where like how do you build up that confidence to lead a team when you don't necessarily know the outcome, but you have to lead with conviction as if this is going to be the outcome?
I guess you just have to be aware that it's an issue. Like everyone has imposter syndrome. Like I remember when we closed the seed round, I woke up one morning, logged into the bank account, and I saw that there's $4.5 million there. All right, now what? How did I convince them to give us that money? And why is no one in charge of us? Like, can we do whatever we want? And it was a very weird morning. And another weird morning was when we got our first employee, and we got to our very small room at WeWork, and I go, someone is working for the company that we built. Why? And it's weird. So imposter syndrome is here, and it's ever gonna stay. Probably, with each stage of the company, we closed our A round. Now we have another $40 million. Like, why did they give it to me? And you continue to do that, but you need to look at the trajectory. You need to look, on the path that you already gone through. It's like, okay, I'm probably doing something right because we continue to grow, we continue to do stuff, we continue to sell the product, we continue to raise money, customers, best employees and best talent. And but we're always looking forward, and you're afraid and trying to learn and trying to help yourself pay that way. But I think it's an ever increasing battle, and if you don't have imposter syndrome, something is probably wrong.
Absolutely. I agree with that 1,000%. Congrats on getting to the Series A stage. I mean, obviously when you look at the statistics of just starting a business, how long it takes and actually get to some level of financial success or outcome, like it's a big challenge, right? I think it's a lot of times people don't necessarily realize it because, it's somewhat glamorized, but statistically speaking, you probably have just as equal of a chance of becoming a rock star or something like that, as opposed to becoming like a founder that gets to a certain level, right? Along that way, what has kind of been, how do you look at, I guess, like team culture, company culture? Obviously, I think your role evolves, your role shifts, the larger the company gets, right? The more traction you get. How have you kind of looked at that journey, and how have you tried to evolve your skill set? What resources have you pinged to try to improve upon those things? Obviously now I'm sure your how you are as an individual, personally and professionally, is probably evolved a lot since your engineering days working for another company, right?
Yeah, the CEO role is, it depends on the day. Right, so there are days that I'm physically carrying boxes to move offices, and there are days that are constantly on sales call and representing in trade shows and interviewing, and like really every day is different. And looking back, a year into the future, a year into the past, like we were just starting, I was bored in the middle of the day and took coding tests, just to help wherever I can. And now like my days are completely insane. It really depends on the time and what you go in, and you always have to grow. You always have to be very responsive to feedbacks, from your team, from the executive team, from your partners, from the VCs. I really believe that you're shaping up to be who you are based on who surrounds you, and that for company building purposes, like the number one thing that we should pay attention for is creating a good company culture. So bringing in the right folks that have the right mentality, that really believes in your vision, that wants to harness their success to your success. And if you generate and foster a culture of everyone feeling part of the company and really committed to its success and committed to one another, this is this is what companies should do, in my opinion, and I'm certainly a part of that. So I need to be the best version of myself, and I need to listen to people telling me that I'm not the best version of myself whenever I am. Try to adapt and try to grow and be wherever I'm needed, as a founder and a CEO.
For sure. Next question, I'm just curious. This is, I don't know what your personal social circle tends to look like, but I think like obviously I don't think it's necessarily just a bunch of other founders / CEOs, right? I think it's probably people that you grew up with as well. And so, has there been anything that you've noticed about your mindset that is different, I think, from, again, maybe people you grew up with that didn't choose, this type of path, either are content with their life or are looking for something better or constantly looking for something better? What do you think the differentiation is? Because there's definitely a lot of like entrepreneurs out there, like, people who want to be an entrepreneur, but don't, for whatever reason, don't have, I don't know, maybe it's like the wherewithal or the persistence, or they give up too easily. But, what do you think are some of those key differentiators from how you've been able to make it work for you versus others that you've maybe seen that haven't been able to figure it out yet?
First, I think entrepreneurship is really not for everyone. Like it's not something you should aspire to do. It's something that you either have to do or don't. And being an entrepreneur is a career choice, like being a dentist, like being a doctor, like being a lawyer, like being anything else. And working down this path is a career choice that they took. Eventually, you look at CEOs and founders, like there's no cookie cutter. People are very different. You can see people that are super extravagant and, just walking with their heads into the wall until they break it type of founder. You see the more humble and conscious type. You see folks that can even, talk in front of the crowd. So it really, really depends. There is no specific personality trait that I think that is there. There should be, a mix of a bunch of personality traits together with the actual desire. And again, you need to be a gambler. You need to be dumb enough to do that. And it is like it's a non-rational decision, whatever you want, whatever you look at it. So either you have it and you want to do it or not. And if it's not, burning into you to come to your baby every day, there is just no reason to pick that route.
Yeah,
I do not recommend it if it's not, if it's not something that you know that you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of hurdles, there's a lot of obstacles to overcome, right? It's like, it's not the easiest thing to do, where it's like, what your expectations are, you do them and you're done and you get the output from it. It's trying to problem solve every single day. Along this journey with Finout, obviously you've had a lot of success with it, and congrats to that. And where do you imagine the company to be in the next 5 years? And also, where do you imagine yourself to be in the next 5 years, right? It's do you imagine for Finout is the company for you to take all the way through, ultimately to whatever the full potential of it can be? Or do you feel that there's opportunity for you to explore other avenues, and what's your kind of the bigger lifelong goal here?
So Finout is continue to grow. We have we have a very clear mindset and vision, and we know what we can build. We know that the market is changing right in front of our eyes, and usage-based pricing and the transition from capex to opex. Enterprise continues their digital transformation. They require tools like Finout. They require something to actually manage their resources, to help them with their chargeback and showbacks, to help them pick the right tools to run procurement processes. We have a very clear vision of what we need to build and our way to get there. In terms of what's personally for me, future with Tel, I plan on continuing to grow together with Finout. If at some point I will end up doing a bad job, then I'll stop doing that job. But I plan on I'm here with Finout. I'm here for the long run. Finout is here for the long run. We know what we can do and what we can build, and we're laser focused in doing that.
Awesome. On that note, I think we can round it out, and just want to say thank you for taking that time. It's great to kind of hear again your journey of how you ended up with where things are. And is this your first startup?
Yeah, it is.
Wow, awesome. Very rare that we hear a founder that kind of gets to the stage that you're at as a first time founder, but that's really amazing. Speaks a lot to, I think, maybe just kind of waiting for the right time, and timing and luck sometimes plays into it, but also just I think all the things that you absorbed along the way makes a lot of sense for kind of where you are now.
Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for having me. It's 50% luck, and even more.
Agreed. Thanks so much for taking the time. I'm sure you're super busy, and hopefully, some of the guests on here, we've had a couple of other guests from Tel Aviv also, and it's been interesting. I think kind of get their background, and I think the idea of being in having the mandatory military requirement, I think that also helps play into having this idea of sharper focus, at least from the founders that we've spoken to from there. So awesome. Thanks again for taking the time.
Thank you so much.